Dorothy Day began her life as a young radical in Greenwich Village. She covered labor unrest. She interviewed Trotsky. She was a radical bohemian in 19 teens and 1920s. And she loved Dostoevsky and read Dostoevsky and really modeled herself a bit on Dostoevsky. But it was a radically disoriented life. She slept around a lot. She drank a lot. She attempted suicide. She had an abortion. And she marched a lot. But the effect of her marching was different than it was on most of her colleagues, because she was a remarkably self-reflective and astoundingly self-critical human being. And so when she's arrested, she goes to jail, and after her first arrest, which was a suffragette march, she wrote, "I had the ugly sense of futility of human effort, man's helpless misery, the triumph of might. Evil triumphed, I was a petty creature, filled with self-deception, self-importance, unreal, false, rightly scorned and punished." So we're talking about the kids today who think they're demigods. She's the exact opposite. She has an intense sense of her own weaknesses. And living this disorganized life in Greenwich Village, these are compounded her awareness. She gets arrested the second time, falsely arrested. She's confused for a prostitute. Nonetheless, she sees it as a sign, an indictment of her life. She writes, "I do not think that ever again, no matter of what I'm accused, can I suffer more than I did then of shame and regret and self-contempt, not only because I had been caught, found out, branded, publicly humiliated, because of my own consciousness that I deserved it." And so this is a fierce capacity for humility and self-laceration. A few years later, she gets pregnant, she has a child, and this has a positive transformational effect on her life. After the birth of her child, she writes, "If I had written the greatest book, composed the greatest symphony, painted the most beautiful painting, or created the most exquisite figure, I could not have felt more exalted a creator than I did when they placed the child in my arms." That child created in her a profound sense of gratitude. No human creature could conceive or contain so vast a flood of love and joy as I often felt after the birth of my child. With this came the need to worship, to adore, something she needed to express her gratitude for, and she became a Catholic. And so here is someone a little different than Frances Perkins. Frances Perkins is not that self-reflective, but exercises an iron self-control while being aware of the faithful side of her nature. Dorothy Day is astonishingly self-reflective and astonishingly vulnerable to the world. Or an Adam Two-Side, you would say. She goes on to create The Catholic Worker, a radical newspaper. She goes on to create soup kitchens, a series of communes, and a series of homeless shelters. She's sort of a naturally standoffish person, but she forces herself to live in the shelters themselves, with the homeless men mostly, and to spend hours and hours and hours with them. They have a different sense of morality. Frances Perkins was always willing to compromise in order to get something done, to really deal with scandal, deal with sleazebags to get something done. For Day, it was not only important to do good, it was important to be good. She had a more sensitive antennae about her own internal nature. Nonetheless, I think both of these, one more worldly, one more religious and more humble, both of these seem to me admirable, amazingly admirable balances between the two sides of our nature.